It's hard for us to endure while we wait for God's promises. I suspect that Simeon and Mary have the type of endurance that would be pretty odd in our present day drive-through, next day delivery, on-demand streaming society. We don't like waiting, much less enduring. We hate it. But it seems like we spend most of our lives enduring. We wait for that baby to born. We wait for it to say its first word. We endure while we wait for it to take that first step without breaking anything. You have to wait until you're 16 to drive a car. For a teenager, that's an eternity. You wait for the right man or woman to come along to get married. You wait for that promotion, for your first home, for that new car. We wait. We endure. Sometimes it's hard to wait. Speaking of endurance, Ed Watt was visiting a department store with his wife. He just purchased a piece of luggage and his wife decided that she was going to go shop for some dresses, so he waited. A clerk asked him, "Hey, do you need any help?" And he said, "No, thank you. I'm just here waiting for my wife." And at that point, the man behind him said, "I'm waiting for my wife too, but I never thought of bringing lunch in an overnight bag." Now, enduring in real life is not always so humorous. It's not always about that positive expectation or change. Sometimes waiting's hard, even painful. Like when you're waiting for a loved one who undergoes major surgery, waiting for the test results regarding a life-threatening illness, waiting for your company to decide who gets laid off, waiting at the bedside of a dying child. It seems like forever, but it's been less than 9 months since we started talking about a vaccine for COVID. We've waited and anticipated that our scientists would figure out that COVID was enough to be able then, what COVID was, and then have enough to be able to develop the vaccines. And that they were developed, and they were delivered a week before Christmas. Now, we must endure until the day when enough of us will be able to receive the vaccine that we can put COVID behind us. Seems pretty hard, doesn't it? The people of Israel waited a very long time for a Messiah who they believed would come and overthrow Rome and liberate Israel. Gary Preston tells a story in his book on character forge and conflict that illustrates how we are to wait. Back when the telegraph was the fastest means of a long-distance communication, there was a story, perhaps apocryphal, about a young man who applied for a job as a Morse code operator. Everybody knows what Morse is? Tap? Okay. Answering an ad in the newspaper, he went to the address that was listed. When he arrived, he entered into a large, noisy office. In the background, a telegraph clacked away. And a sign on the receptionist's counter instructed the job applicants to fill out a form and wait until they were summoned to enter the inner office. The young man completed his form, sat down with 7 other applicants, and waited. After a few minutes, the man stood up, crossed the room to the door of the inner office, walked right in. Naturally, the other applicants perked up, wondering what was going on. Why had this men been so bold? They muttered among themselves that they hadn't heard any summons yet. They took more than a little satisfaction in assuming that the man went into the office would be reprimanded for his presumption and summarily disqualified for the job. Well, within a few minutes, the young man emerged from from the inner office, and he was escorted out by the interviewer, who announced to the other applicants, "Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming, but the job's been filled by this young man." The other applicants began grumbling to each other, and one spoke up, "Wait a minute. I don't understand. He was the last one to come in, and we never even got a chance to be interviewed. Yet he got the job. That's not fair." The employer responded, "All the time you've been sitting here, a telegraph has been ticking out the following message in Morse code. If you understand this message, then come right in. The job is yours." None of you heard it or understood it, but this young man did, so the job is his. The young man got his job not just because he waited. Everybody was waiting. But he waited expectantly. He paid attention and he listened. We're sitting in a waiting room of life, but it's how we wait. What we do while we're waiting. That's important. The young man in the office was listening. And because he was rewarded. Waiting doesn't mean just sitting down doing nothing. You have to be watching and looking for God to fulfill your promise. You have to believe he's going to do it.